circumstances. So let's just take a moment to pause, and wherever you are, and if it is safe for you to close your eyes, you can do so, or you can keep them just softly looking downward. And let's just take a couple of deep belly breaths, just feeling the breath move deeply into your belly so you can feel the soft expansion of the belly away from the spine. And then as you breathe out, just feel the breath hugging back towards the spine, like a gentle hug that you're giving yourself. Each breath is a moment to remember that we are supported, that we are inspired by the divine. And each breath out is a remembering that in the letting go and the surrendering that we are deeply held and supported. Each breath in, we can be inspired and filled back up. And each breath out, we can surrender and know that we can rest and be in divine flow without so much pushing, striving, and doing. So in this moment, just go ahead and make yourself known to your body, to your emotions. And then we'll make our way back. So I am so deeply grateful that beautiful Yolanda has shown up today, and I don't have to go solo.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for your
Yes.
patience. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. And then I was like, okay, I can do this, because I have an option to replay another show. I'm like, no, like, okay, I'm not fully prepared, but I have to trust. Like, this is a moment where we have to trust that we have everything that we need and that we can do it. And if it's not perfect, it's fine, and just not be fearful and step away from the challenge. But I'm
Absolutely.
still happy you're here. So.
Thank you so much, Lynsie. Oh, I hear you deeply and I feel you deeply. Yes.
Yeah, so let me introduce you to our audience. So, Yolonda Coles Jones is also known as the Calm and Thrive coach. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like to thrive and be calm while you're thriving? She is an international conscious relationship expert and empowered living coach. She helps reactive, drained, distracted, and anxious people learn to be more at home, at peace, and in unconditional love with themselves and others so they can be more present in more of the moments that make up this one precious life. And what I personally love about Yolanda is her presence. She shows up with this amazing, powerful presence. You can feel the sense of calm in her. And we think that power always has to be this, like, almost like this pushing and this aggressive, like, take over kind of energy. But Yolanda has this ability to be in that room, take up space, but allow others to have their space as well, too. And it just gives you this beautiful sense of like, oh, I can be held, be myself without judgment, so that I can start to unravel all the things I need to unravel in a really safe space. So I love you for that, because it's just palpable before even the first word comes out of your mouth. But when the words come out of your mouth, oh Lord, they're powerful. They are so powerful and poetic. And I'm like, I just want to write everything down. I want to be Yolanda.
I truly give thanks. Thank you for all of that commentary. And as I'm sitting here in this moment, I'm actively, you know, noting, and I'm hoping our conversation will go this way, how actively embodying the teachings, because being calm and being grounded and holding space for yourself and others doesn't mean that life is not actively
No.
doing all the things that life can do and does, just very dynamic, and being able to embody that discipline of presence and awakeness and zooming out in the midst of it all is truly why it's so important to me to be in a space like this one with you right now.
Yeah, and it's like people, it's so easy to project our imagination out onto someone else's life and be like, oh, they're so calm and present, and they must not have any challenges
Oh my
in their life,
gosh.
which is total BS.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what you said is like, it is a disciplined practice. I
Yes.
mean, I didn't show up, I've been practicing this for a long time, but people that have known me like 15, 20 years ago, they can come in and testify, oh, honey, this woman was angry and
Mm,
volatile. I mean,
mm,
no, I wasn't like physically mean or abusive to people, but through
Mhm.
my words,
Mhm.
I could be, because I was just so reactionary. And so I'd love for you to tell us how you've created this discipline of having the ability to be so present
Yeah.
and hold that space for people while you can hold your own stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I listened to you and am raising my hand like, oh, I definitely was the person who was, reactive and at times violent with, my own personal belongings, or just completely. And again, at that time, in that particular season I'm thinking about, I had undiagnosed PTSD, after experiencing some very complicated and complex things that happened in my personal life, and watching my life pivot, or deciding in a moment of like just being at my absolute wits end. I could not take it anymore. I could not take the fact that anger and rage and all these very necessary and needful emotions were hijacking the driver's seat, like literally taking me out of my life several times a day. It was miserable. And so I came to a point where I had to decide, like, either I'm going to figure out how to heal, like deeply figure out how to like heal, or I don't want to be here anymore. And that's just how it was for me. Like, it was just that cut and dry, at the most intense moments of it. And so that's when the practice really, really began to be accelerated. But prior to that, I have just always been, I think I may have had a bit of a leg up, because I think I was born into the world as an old soul. I came through as someone who was very like, I just observe a lot of things and watch and study. I've always been that way, asking a lot of inward questions, just contemplative. Like, that's kind of always been the way that I've been. However, it wasn't until I began to get older and age and experience my own, calamity, as it were, that I began to understand how I can take that skill of observing and apply it, like, tune that awareness inward, and notice like what's happening in there, what's happening with me, and how is what's happening with me. I began to understand how what's happening inside me is an example of what's happening out in the world, right? Like, people, there's just all this connectedness. So when I've learned to relate to myself and the things that are scary that I'm facing in there, or the parts of me that are not so comely, hard to work with, hard to deal with, working with my own stuff, looking at my own like sort of like stuff that I want to push down and put away, has enabled me to grow the muscle of compassion, and to be able to understand how, when I meet others who are appearing in prickly ways, or I'm in circumstances that feel like they're squeezing me, how I can like zoom out to something bigger. And that bigger thing, we could talk for hours and hours about all the ways we can appreciate that and come to understand what and how that acts on our lives and in our lives, and how we participate. But I think that sort of dance of like calamity, calamity is here in the past. Now what? Now what? Um, how will you respond? How do you want to be in the world? And those questions, like, deepening into those, especially in intense times, has enabled me to condition and work that muscle of awareness and awakeness, and zooming out and making conscious decisions moment by moment, knowing that I have the choice, like I can do it, right, has been life changing, in the way that
Yeah,
I
how do
do.
you want to be? I mean, I love
Right.
that question. Like, how do I want to be? Do I
Mm-hmm.
want to be this angry person that's throwing dishes, or and
Sure.
as we were talking, I was like, well, actually, maybe I was that kind of violent person too. I was that kind of
Broke
angry
some
person.
dishes in my day. Yes, I
I'm
have
just like having a selective memory right now. Okay, I'm probably gonna get like some notes from some exes
definitely.
comments like, hello, let me remind you.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but in that moment, you're like, okay, you don't like, I don't want to be this way. And if I can't change, then I don't even want to be here. I mean, I
Yeah.
think for me, it was just like, I mean, I could feel the discomfort of it all, but I was so identified with that aspect of anger and rage.
Mhm.
It was almost scary to let go of it, because like, who would I be without it? And 'cause I felt like that was my power. I would get stuff done because
Yeah.
I would use that almost as a motivating force, a powerful force to get me forward in life. And if I let go of that, how would I move and how would I be? And it was just this almost scary place of letting that go and remembering, like the remembering of who I could be. And that is still happening. It's still happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You say something that really, it strikes me because I wrote this song in my life as a songwriter called Wild Woman. And it was when I came to meet that part of me that I had never met before, who was tearing up stuff, right? Breaking dishes and just a destructive presence. And she was in the driver's seat and I was nowhere in the vehicle, right? Like I may have been like on the outside of the car, holding on
looking
for
at the
dear
car
life.
crash.
Right. Holding on for dear life.
Witness.
I had to learn how to like reclaim the driver's seat and also let the wild woman be there too. Like be like she like I need her. I need her to be with me. When you talk about using the energy, I think about, we call it energy bending in my home, being able to like let the energy be there and work with it and not let it drive. And learning how to do that, learning how to let that wild part of me be there because I need her. I need what information she might present. I need the fire. I need the fury to get things done. And to also keep awareness of like the most grounded, most grown up, most zoomed out part of myself, so that I'm sort of taking in this information from whoever it is, like whatever part of me is there, whether it's fear, anger, sadness, rage, disappointment, if there's extreme like sadness and depression there or anxiety, like what are these things here to tell me? And they become more like allies and, sources of information than enemies or things that I need to like push out of the car, right? Like it's like, no, be here with me. And what do I need to know? Like, what do you need me to know? How can I work with you? As opposed to us fighting for who's going to drive.
And there's so many things that come to mind. Like, one, I'm thinking of this sacred rage, like this Kali energy. This goddess Kali is just the goddess of this transformation. I'm talking to my women in my Awaken the Divine Feminine program right now. This whole month is dedicated to Kali, and she's this transformative energy, and she's that sacred rage.
Yes.
But out of control, she's the one that's going to be breaking things and not communicating clearly, being a little bit violent. But when we harness that energy, because we don't want her to go away, because she's the wild feminine, like that part of us that has already been pushed down. And that's probably why she's so pissed off. But let her come forward and guide us and empower us for our transformation, and to bring those parts of ourselves, all the parts in, and know that they have voice. And I love how you said that the depression, the anxiety, all of the things are lessons. Like, okay, like talk to those parts of yourself instead of trying to push them down as well.
Yes.
And bring them forward. And then you're going to have a lot of voices in your head.
Yep.
But I've always found, and let me know if this is the same for you, is that when you give voice to all of those pieces, that's all they've ever wanted. And then they start to give you this beautiful information, and then they start to settle. And then you can start to harness that energy, like bring them all together.
Yes. Absolutely. 100%. I mean, integration and that, a lot of that deep work for me in seasons needed to happen with support. But I learned in that work, how to do it for myself, how to keep doing it for myself. And it's an active, ongoing, you mentioned earlier, it's an ongoing practice. And the more we do it, the more we change the way our brains are wired. So it comes online. We don't have to work as hard because we have this new mapping that happens, neuroplasticity, we even bring science in, right? Like, I mean, all of this is founded. And I know as a person who has lived it, that it works. Absolutely.
And I love how you said that, it's an ongoing work, like we're building that muscle. And we're, just like if you go to the gym, you can build muscle, but if you stop going to the gym, guess what? Your muscles start to atrophy. So it's this ongoing thing, and it can feel overwhelming as, spiritual seeker, like, oh, this is never ending. But like you just said, it does get easier because you're building the neuroplasticity, you're building, like you're pulling those parts together, and therefore you can meet those challenges with more calm and presence.
Yes.
100%.
I mean, it is true. It's true. I mean, I know because I've lived it. I know I've gone from reactive and anxious and depressed and overwhelmed to to a space of being able to hold steadiness and know where my feet are in a moment of intensity and find my breath, in the middle of like heated whatever it is. It's like I can walk through this with clarity and wisdom and groundedness when I touch into what I know to be true. Yeah.
And it's like, because you've done it yourself, and this is what makes you such a phenomenal presence and coach, is because you're not teaching theory. You're not reading something and then agitating it out there. You're like, no, I have been through the storm,
Yeah.
and this is what I know to be true in my whole being. And therefore, this is why I can hold this space for you and be there for you while you have to go through your own storm. You have to do it yourself, but I can hold that space for you.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one piece. Maybe it will come back, and maybe it won't. I don't even say that anymore. I'm like, it will come back. I'm like, no, maybe it will, maybe it won't.
Right.
Maybe something else will come in better. But we're already up to our first break in the show. So what we're going to do is be right back with Yolonda Coles Jones. And if you're interested in exploring some of that Kali energy, be sure to go to my website, lynsiemckeown.com, and join our Awaken the Divine Feminine, where you get to learn how to free up that wild feminine and harness that power so you can have voice and presence and really reclaim those parts of yourself. And so we'll be right back with the amazing Yolonda Coles Jones.
Thank you, Ashe.
All right, good segment. All clear. Back into.
And I forgot to hit record, so I'm going to go ahead and hit record. But we are live in our Facebook group. So hi. So I take it Yolanda's mic is okay, her sound. Gabe, oh, he's probably out doing the other thing. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lynsie. I'm so just appreciative of your patience while I am navigating, recovering from COVID and reintegrating into my house literally today and yesterday. And it's just been crazy. So thank you so much for your patience.
Of course. And I think that's important for everyone that's like watching in our Facebook group, is like, still showing up, and you can still have this amazing presence about yourself. And even though there's that chaos, like, okay, I'm just coming out of COVID, and here I am, I'm out of, lockdown.
Yeah, literally within the last several hours, folks. So, so yeah, and that means that life is just imagine. I heard someone say once, like leaving work for a day and you come back and you have like hours of work left, like just piled up because you weren't there. Like that happens actively. I have 4 kiddos, and I'm a business owner as well, and so I'm actively in the chaos too, and it's possible to hold steadiness even in the midst of all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for showing up, right on the heels of COVID, because I know, so it would have been like, for me, if myself 10 years ago, I would probably be like, no, I can't do it. I have to do it, because I wasn't completely ready. It wasn't perfect. Perfect. I can't do it. Scary.
Yeah, no, not having to be perfect is part of my like clarion call. Like it is for right now. It is like, this work is for right now. It is for the crazy. It is so that in it you can make clear decisions. You cannot control all the things happening out here. And even in the physical body, I couldn't control like how fast COVID was going to move through my physical body, and being able to be present to all of that, and also present to other things too, zoomed out. I keep saying that, zooming out, like this is here, yes, and
sorry to jump
yeah.
in. We are coming back.
Okay, we're gonna have to be quiet for a second.
Okay.
You're listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Welcome back, everyone, to Women Thriving Unapologetically. I am here with Yolonda Coles Jones, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to have her here for so many different reasons. She's just such a powerful, powerful presence and beautiful human being that is helping other people to find their power and their presence and connect to their own beauty again. And so, we were talking during the break about, just showing up, even though there's challenges. And Yolanda's just coming off of COVID. She's just now reintegrating just hours out of
Mhm.
quarantine into her home. And
Mhm.
so, um, and you always are so honest about the journey that you're in. Like share with everyone, and this was makes you so relatable, and people can trust you because, like, oh, she's doing it. She's not perfect, and she's still being able to show up and be calm and present. And I would love for you to tell us, like, well, first of all, like for me, like part of this show and creating it, like the thriving piece, like we always think that that's just, lots of money and we're
Mhm.
prospering and we're achieving our goals.
Mhm.
But one of the definitions about thriving is that, okay, we are moving towards our goals in spite of circumstances and
Yeah.
challenges. So tell us, besides, COVID kicking you in the pants and making all the work pile up on you, what
Uh-huh.
are some of the challenges that you're navigating right now, and yet you're still feeling like you're thriving? Or are you not feeling like you're thriving right now?
Well, I'll be honest. So it's funny because just before I got sick, and I've been in COVID isolation now for, I think it's been 12 days, 13 days. Um, just before I got sick, literally days before I got sick, I was at a gathering and someone asked me, how have you been? How have things been for you? And I paused a little longer than was comfortable for people around me because I was thinking, and I'm not the kind of person that like just says, "Oh, I'm great, I'm good." Like I don't just regurgitate like a mechanical answer. Even if it is, I don't want to share all the things that are happening. I'll say, I've been moving through some challenging things, and I'm grateful to be here in this moment. I might say something like that, but I paused. And it was because I have been moving through so many hard things this summer. I have 4 children. I have, businesses. My husband and I lost our business, one of our main business last year in COVID. We've had so much loss and a lot of grief and a lot of change and a lot of things coming to the surface with each of the humans that live in the home with us, 4 children, husband, animal beings. Like there's so much transitioning happening in the midst of just the navigating of this global health crisis and all the things that it is trickling down to impact. And so I have very real things happening with, each of those humans and myself. And so, I also have a very clear, devoted care practice for myself so that I don't show up in the world and pretend. Even the work of like trying to pretend that everything is okay, right, is a kind of labor. It's a kind of violence
Yeah.
I find to myself because it's like I'm ignoring the fact that I may not be okay in a moment, right? So, not being okay and loving myself through the not being okayness and getting support for myself in all the ways that that has looked, whether it is reaching out to a trusted friend or reaching out to a therapist or doing reaching into my medicine bag and making sure I have somebody in my ears who is like grounded and inspired instead of like a whole lot of stuff that causes me to spiral down as opposed to spiraling up, even if the spiral up is slow. So, that kind of real life unfolding is definitely what I am in the throes of. And actively still supporting myself, making sure that I'm able to start there and then from that place amplify out to support my children and to partner and walk alongside my husband and to work with my clients all over the world and be able to embody the teachings plus come alongside folks as they are walking through all the things that have happened with these people. I mean, I'm not the only family. My family is not the only one who has endured sometimes hardship. And so it's not that we don't face hardship, it's how we show up in the hardship that for me means thriving, right? Like there are things that are beyond our control. And to be able to be present in a storm with awareness of a kind of centeredness so that you don't get stuck or caught up or swept away in all the things that are happening has been something that begins with this deep, deep, deep awareness of core being and deep love for self and mercy and compassion and patience, decidedness, right?
Okay.
Conscious decision. What'd you say?
What's that? What's patience?
With myself, right? Like deep, deep, like showering and lathering on so much patience and compassion for myself. And then that enables me to, in my communities, we call that the overflow effect, inside the empowered people ecosystem. And, when you do that kind of intentional work and love, I call it love work, because people hear work and they think, oh, you're just constantly just like trying to improve yourself. No, like it is, you are loving yourself, even when it's hard to get up in the morning and you might sleep instead of getting up to do that meditation. Like, and that might disappoint a part of you. It's being able to be patient, even with all of that self-judgment, and noticing it and saying, oh, all right, here I am. The judgy me is forward, and being able to work with that part as opposed to pushing it down, which is what we talked about before the break. And
I love that. I'm always looking for another word for work. It just has we associate it with so many things that we don't want in our life: the overwhelm, the exhaustion, the pushing. We, even back when we were kids, like, oh, homework, no one wants that. But I love when you like pull in the word love, like love work. Often said it, and it reminds us, oh, I'm doing this for myself. Yes. And that's this overflow effect of just showering yourself with that compassion and that nurturance, that self-honoring.
Yes.
I think it's so important, because what if you're not doing that, if you're not showering yourself with that love, then what are you showering yourself with? I mean, I have this vision of stepping into a shower that's pristine and beautiful and lit with sunlight, or it's just like poo.
Yeah. And what's coming out of the shower heads is like daggers and like broken glass and all the stuff that you're just receiving into your physical body, into your mind, into your thought space, and that informs the way you show up and how you feel. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, tell us more about the overflow effect. This is what you bring in with you in your powerful groups. And I love how you don't call them groups, you call them ecosystems.
Yeah. Yeah. So the overflow effect is that like beginning with self. I work with a lot of family leaders. So people who are in the role of nurturer and leading and making decisions for, either their own household or, people like midwives and doulas and folks who are supporting other homes, in the work of working with all these other humans, and these humans rely on you. So we do all of this sort of, outward focus. Our attention is out a lot of the time when we're in a role like that. And I think that this applies really to anyone. We forget that we're here too. And when we forget that, then we end up just depleting, going down, like down, like we just deplete down to zero, down to fumes. And then we expect ourselves to still be able to last and thrive while we're doing all the things with and for all the other people. And so the overflow effect then is just this turning this awareness, like being able to remember the fact that you are here too, and you need care, and you matter. And all of this is important because it enables you to last and thrive. So it is, this sort of, this symbiosis of the more you care for you, the more you can show up and overflow. And it does, it impacts the way you talk to yourself. You will hear and see that reflected in the ways that people are talking to you and conversing with you, around you. If you are in a home culture that you're building, the more you are able to embody love and wisdom and patience, even when you're stressed, even when you're angry, even when you are frustrated, being able to move and embody and hold that kind of love. You've cared for your body. What is holding up, what patterns are holding, what stress is in your shoulders and what's in your jaws. And when you're able to soften and send love to those areas, then the overflow of that means that you're now able to deal more lovingly, with more compassion, more grace with other folks. You're able to see them too in their frustration, because you know what frustration feels like, and the work of working to soften that and to be with it and to work with it and not try to make it go away. So the more you are able to turn your great love, the light of your awareness, towards yourself, the more able you are to continue to do that in the work that you're doing in the world. If it's with your children, your partner, your coworkers, the stranger on the street who cut you off, when you're trying to get off that interstate. And I raise my hand because that's one of the classic examples that I raised to the folks. I was a person once in my life that would follow.
Oh my God.
I would be so angry.
Right on their bumper.
Right. Being able to And, in some places and parts, the wrong moment, the wrong time. I can remember as a kid, like when road rage was like first coming into awareness of like more people, and there were like really awful things happening because people were consumed with road rage. And so it's a very real thing to be able to give yourself pause, and being able to like take a beat can be the difference between running somebody down on the highway that you don't even know, like complete just losing yourself, like leaving yourself, can be the difference between that and like just, oh, where are my feet? Am I okay? Am I safe in this moment? Like, what else do I know besides I am really angry and that really bothered me and that was awful. And I can't believe how inconsiderate, like being able to be present to that and also zooming out. Courage does not mean that we're not afraid, does not mean we're not angry. It means that we know other things too. So being able to zoom out, like when we can do all these things for ourselves, it just makes it more possible to do it for others. That's one part of the overflow effect. But then we also embody this kind of frequency and vibration that means we attract that same sort of behavior, right? Like people now are reflecting back to us the way we speak to them and reflecting back to us the way we treat them. And, doors open and the universe begins to unfold itself when we show up consistently as the version of ourselves that we actually want to be. And, with a deep regard and respect for ourselves, in addition to being able to hold that same kind of regard and respect for others. It changes everything. I mean, it really does change everything.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate this because I don't think we can say it enough, as it has to start with ourselves. And it's so difficult for, householders to really embrace this concept because they're just buried in the busyness and the to-dos and all the things. But what you said about the road rage is like in that moment, you're forgetting yourself. And we forget that it doesn't have to be in that moment of rage or anger that we forget ourselves, but we forget ourselves in all the stuff and all the busyness and all the caretaking. And it's really when we feel into, and I love this idea, like, okay, how am I feeling in this moment? Because if you get really adept at it and you are practiced, because awareness is a practice, like, you can almost, you reclaim your power of choice, because in that moment, like, oh, I'm getting that heat in my belly again. Yes. And I know when that gets like, if that heat gets too hot, I blow.
That's
and
right.
So like, okay, why is this getting so hot right now? I'm like, oh yes, because this is reminding me of that time that this guy said this thing to me. And it's really not about this moment here. It's just pulling me into another situation that's making it even more potent. And I just feel like, oh, in that moment, how can I nurture myself? Like, it's okay. Like you said, am I safe in this moment? Do I need to attack for my safety, or do I need to flee or freeze or fawn? Wait a second. No, I'm safe. Let me just bring some presence to that. And then those flames will start to, they'll start to dissipate. And then all of a sudden, with that self-nurturance, that deep, deep love for yourself, you have created a safer space for everyone else around you too. Because it's not safe when someone gets, I mean, I grew up in a family where my dad wasn't, drank too much. He was an alcoholic, but he would lose his temper. And it felt very violent, and it became an unsafe place. So, but now, and I was learning how to be that way. So now it's like, okay, when I feel that coming in, how do I like give myself that deep love that I needed when I was a little girl?
Yes. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, Yolanda, I'm going to let you talk for a moment because I'm realizing that I didn't plug my computer in and I'm going to lose all connection in 2 seconds.
Uh-oh.
So you can take this.
Sure.
But let's talk. No pressure. But we could talk about the remembering you, because that is so beautiful. Like, how do we remember those fractured parts of ourselves and bring them back in?
Sure. I think one of the most powerful things that has been consistent and steady in helping me to refresh myself, helping me to last, helping me to remember laughter, to remember play when we get, caught in the caught in the stuck, caught in the get it done mode, is joy. And, that is like the first author that brought that back to my awareness is, I think her name is Sabrina Gandhi. I don't know, I might be saying her name wrong, but the book is Sacred Pampering Principles. And in that book, there are these exercises. There's this beautiful explanation of joy and the power that comes from having direct to you joy, not just, even though it's powerful to witness somebody else's joy, we witness other folks in their joy, but what is it that brings us joy? And being able to go back to those things, remembering what we did when we were kids that like we could just do forever and we forgot what time it was and we had to be called away from it. Coming back to those things in our adulthood, remembering those things helps to give us a little surge that, sometimes it can be just a little teeny shot and sometimes it could be a shower or bathing ourselves in joy, and that enables us to keep going. And to remember, like, also, like, we are not just this person who has to get things done. We're not just this person who has to watch the clock, or this person who is all grown up and boring and stale and dried out and gray. Like, there is this color that comes back when we can remember joy and keep that with us. So I think that's one aspect of a really important way to remember who we are and that we're here too, is how we came earthside. Like, that hasn't gone away. We've gone through things. Those things have attached themselves to us in various ways, but that part of us who was there always innately is still there. And when we can come back to that, find our ways back to that, we find our ways home.
Joy. And, as an adult for a long time, it was very difficult for me to be like, oh, what do I define as fun? Like, what brings me joy? And I would always try to think back into my younger years. Like, it doesn't feel like that applies now. So I'm like, all I have to do is just change my perspective. Like, what brings me joy now? What's a joyful moment for me now? The slip and slide might not do it now for me.
Maybe not.
but I like how we can remember that and bring that memory back in, because when we remember something, we bring the emotions back in. And we know this because if someone's hurt us and we think about that situation, we can feel that pain. But using that the power of our memory to bring in those moments of joy, even if we can't get outside and go down the slip and slide, we can bring that back in and remember that joy and bring that in. Because for me, and my understanding is that joy is one of those emotions that are the closest to universal consciousness, to the divine. And then we're in that resonance, of the divine. And then everything's flowing so much better in that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're up to our second break already. Like, Yolanda and I could seriously like talk for probably days.
Yeah, long
I have
time.
this vision of doing a retreat with you. So I'm just throwing that out there for everyone to hear and be my witness. Okay.
Tell me more. Tell me more. I love a retreat.
Yeah. So we're going to take our last break of the show. But if you want to drop some questions for Yolanda, she's going to be hanging out with us for a few moments after we end our live show. And we're going to stay on in the Facebook group, which is Women Thriving Unapologetically. So you get to ask your questions there and we'll answer them real time. But so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Yolonda Coles Jones.
Thank you.
All right, we're all clear. Back in 2.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm trying a new setup right now because my back has been really bothering me. So I got this stand-up desk and I didn't test it for, the setup for the show. And so this morning, last minute, I'm like, this is not working. I can't stand. I mean, it's a thing right now.
Oh, no.
And so in doing it and changing all the things, I kept unplugging the computer and plugging it back in. And then I forgot to plug it back in. I'm like, you see that little red thing, like, oh, heck, this might not.
Well, we work with it. We work with it. Well.
So thank you for really being able to just jump in there.
Sure, no problem. But yeah, when it's in you, it's just in you. So
yeah, it's true. It is so true. Yeah. And that's why, when I was like, okay, if something's happened and Yolanda can't be here, that's why I was like, okay, I just have to remember it's in me. Just have to breathe and let it flow.
Always ready. Always ready.
Yeah.
When you don't think you are.
So, yeah. So we have one more segment. There's so much to talk about and so many things we would like to talk. I'd love to ask you, but what really wants to come through you for this last segment? What would you really like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I don't know. I just keep thinking about pacing and being aware of that core core self as you move through whatever is presenting along your path, whatever it is, and being able to bring that awareness to the soles of the feet, and awareness to the breath, and awareness to the imagination of, spaciousness around even whatever is here. Just imagining breath going to that, and knowing that you have agency in that moment to choose how you will respond, what your next thing will be, your next move will be.
Yeah.
You don't have to be overwhelmed and overcome by the things, even though it feels like it.
Yeah, coming back.
Maybe we can just go through the steps of that. Like, what's the first step? And like, just
Sure.
so our audience can hear, like, let's do this step by step so they have something to take away.
Yeah.
You're listening to Women Thriving Unapologetically with Lynsie McKeown. Have a question for Lynsie or her guests? Want to share your story? Email Lynsie at thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. That's thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Here again is Lynsie.
Welcome back, everyone, to Women Thriving Unapologetically. You're here with me, Lynsie McKeown, and Yolonda Coles Jones. We're having an amazing conversation about remembering you, how to really remember who you are and what's important to you in the busyness of your life. We have, and so many more things we've been talking about, but I was asking Yolanda during the break, okay, what do we really want to bring in? What do you really want to bring in here at the last piece of this portion of the show? And Yolanda mentioned that this about pacing ourselves, and I talk about this too. I call it honor your pace. Like, how do we just find the pace and the rhythm where we are allowing ourselves to really feel what we're feeling, to be able to be present to other people, to be moving towards our goals, to be thriving, but not being completely exhausted by the process of it. So I would love for you to share with us how you do this. Like, what are the steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that a lot of the time, and this was true for me too, when we talked about and understood, we heard terms like self-care, which has now been, so overly used and miseducated around. Like there's this concept, and so it becomes this thing where we just kind of chuck to the side and forget about it. Cause like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. I don't have time to sit in a bathtub, or I don't have time to go to like a week-long retreat. I don't have time for that. But then we miss the element of care. And so what does it look like? Like, how can self-care be free? How can it be accessible to anybody? How can it happen right now? Because I'm afraid and I'm depleted and I'm anxious and I'm overly stimulated in this moment. How can I, bring on care for myself, bring care online for myself? And so one of the things that I know helps me, and that I know helps, folks that I work with all over the world, are simple things like breath, and training your awareness to like becoming awakened to where you are in time and space, where your physical body is, and starting with something that is more accessible. So like it's immediately here with you. Where is your body? If your feet are accessible to you, where are the soles of your feet? If you can feel that, where is that? And then like stretching out, wiggling the toes and planting the feet onto the earth. Literally imagining like a kind of like laser beam sort of like shining on the base from the toes down to the heels, and sort of scanning back and forward and realizing where you are. I did this one time in an airplane during turbulence and was like, oh, wow, it works in the air. Like I feel a sense of calm just by putting my feet firmly on the floor of this airplane, like cabin, and becoming aware of like just that space right there on the bottom of my feet. And then if your feet are not accessible, or if they are, you can bring it up to your sits bones and think about where your bottom is. And sometimes if it's really intense, you might lean up against a wall. You might like put your whole body down on the floor. Like, I mean, there's so many things that you can do in the heat of it, in the most intense moments, right? To come back to your body. Often we leave ourselves, our thoughts just take us spiraling forward or spiraling backward. And we forget that there is this piece of us, which is right, who we are, where we are, that is just right here in the now. And if we can send as much awareness as we can to what is happening right now with our physical body, some teachings, some traditions call it the temple. Where are you? Where are you? And the more awareness you can send to the soles of the feet, to the sits bones, to like, you might gently sort of, touch in lovingly onto your arms or your wrists or your forearms and squeeze just a little bit so you can become aware of where your bones are. Where's your spinal column? And, you might even, if you feel intuitively led to move just a little bit, like coming out of linear sort of rushing ahead thinking and stopping to bring some nonlinear movement into the body and just arriving fully into where you are. And you might just notice without interruption, air moving in and out of the body. So, where do you feel it? Is it at the nostrils? Is it at your shoulders? If we can just turn our attention to these things that are supporting us while we are in the midst of the chaos, while we are in the midst of the stress, what are your hands doing? Like if these parts of you are available, whatever part of your body is available to you to access, turn towards it and see what's there. And notice the breath constantly supporting you with taking oxygen in, taking nutrients in, even when you're not thinking about it. And the pause that happens at the end of the inhale, that rest that is offered there. And then exhaling and the release that's automatically happening, thousands of times over the course of a day, this natural taking in, this natural rest, this natural releasing, and then the rest even at the end of that. So just like turning your awareness to like, ooh, let me just breathe a little bit, right? Let me just take a couple of beats and just notice my breathing. Even if I don't, like there are all these apps that help us to extend the breathing and box breathing and all these wonderful exercises, but sometimes those aren't accessible. So I really like to teach people how to come to like right where you are right now and not interrupt what's happening. Just zoom out and notice where you are. Notice where your feet are. Notice where your bottom is. Notice where your back is. Ooh, and then zoom out, like really settle into the sensation of being supported by whatever's holding you up. And then just notice the breath moving in and out of your body. You don't even have to change it. Just notice it. And that can offer grounding as well. Noticing and sometimes, looking out, like, are you near something that is, looking out, like I'm at my window now, I can look at these trees. And just imagine, lungs, just imagine breath, just imagine. And then I might send that imagination of spaciousness out into whatever is presenting, whatever is along my path. If it's a child who is really upset about something, or, some email I've just received, or some text message, or like somebody's at the door, like, or something is happening that might be stressful or not. But if it is, especially when it's intense, because this is usually when we need the most support and we forget to support ourselves, it's like to send that breath and just imagine it like enrapturing and in and out, just making space around everything that's in the path. So not trying to make the things go away. It's not what we're doing. We're just sending breath around it. We're sending space and we're imagining that pacing and that presence and that zooming out so that we can be present to what's here with some confidence and some consciousness and awakeness and wisdom and clarity, which helps us to make decisions that are in line with that wisdom, clarity, insight. Like that's when all that stuff comes through, intuitive sort of leaning, like that comes through when we are able to really like just be here and zoom out and connect to the support that's all around us all the time. We just forget about it. And it doesn't mean that we now have like a magic wand and we have all the answers to all the things. It just means that we can literally move from this now to this now, and then this now, with some clarity, with some wisdom, with some grounding, with some ability to not be consumed with all the things.
Yeah, and it feels like it comes back to that remembering. It's like, okay, in that moment, again, it comes back first, awareness. Okay, I'm noticing that I'm feeling these things.
Yes.
And it's starting to either feel overwhelming, or I can tell that I'm not going in the direction that I want to go, that's going to serve me and the people that I love. But just in that moment, these tools are so simple, just like, where are my feet? Where are my hands? And if you can't connect to that part of your body, because some of us have difficulty feeling into our body, you can look out the window and connect to that tree or that plant. And you can connect to your breath, because that's always happening. And in that moment, you create this space. And it's in that spaciousness that we can find our connection again.
Yes.
And it's so sweet and it's so simple because we as human beings, we think we live very complicated lives. Therefore, all the solutions have to be even more complicated and detailed. But the beauty about being human and a spirit in a human body is that we have that connection, and it's so simple. And I love how you don't make it complicated. You make it so accessible to everyone. You don't have to do it in depth. I mean, I can teach you some crazy breathing techniques.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
That moment. No, because you're not going to be remembering that in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that, you mentioned, I think learning how to do all these more advanced practices helps with the conditioning that we were talking about earlier,
Exactly.
right? Like that helps us to really like curate a really like incredible medicine bag. And I think that sometimes too, especially if you're new to, becoming aware and you're just building this practice of self-awareness, so it can really help you to not have to think about too much. And if it's not already in your body, if it's not already in your like, subconscious sort of like coming up without you thinking about it, then it really is just, earth, air.
Mhm.
Let me have a sip of water, like, and that can help my muscle, my brain, like switch over into awareness of something else. Like, how does this feel in my mouth? How does it feel going down my esophagus? Earth, air, water. Being able to use these very simple elemental things to bring your self-care and bring awareness back to you so that you're here too. Hey, you're here and you can support yourself in even these small ways, and then they can amplify and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you feel really supple because this has become your practice. And on and on, moment by moment, day by day, week by week, season by season, you bring these things online and it enables you to keep supple. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that moment by moment, day by day.
Mhm.
And then, simple remembering of earth, air, water, earth, air,
Mhm.
water. Because, I'm not going to remember some complex breathing technique when someone's really activating me.
Yeah.
But because I've done all those things for such a long time as a disciplined or devotional practice, then in that moment, as you mentioned, it's already there in me. So all I have to remember is earth, air, water, breathe,
Mhm.
and breath, and
Mhm.
breath. And then
Mhm.
it becomes, and I'm much more aware of that moment and how I am, and I can shift into a way of being
Yeah,
instead of reacting or doing. And
absolutely.
so, I really want people to be able to connect with you, Yolanda. So tell us, how can all of our amazing listeners connect to you and just get that shower of wisdom that you so offer up, willingly and so generously?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So right now, a lot of the work that I'm doing is happening inside my Facebook group. So Family Leaders Who Love Well is the Facebook group name, and it's free to access. You just need to answer a couple of questions so we know you're not coming in there with the
Family
wrong.
leaders that love well or live well?
Love well,
Love well.
Love. Yes,
Okay.
love well. Family leaders who love well. And I also have a podcast, Empowered People Each Day. It's available on all platforms. And at any of those places, you can find ways to access me directly. So you'll find links to my Instagram, YOLONDA_J, Yolanda J. And yeah, those are the best ways to find me. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I have to say, you always have such great content. I always follow you on Instagram, and I do listen to your podcast. There was one thing about this podcast that I listened to that so wanted to ask you about today, but maybe you'll come back on to
Ah,
the show. The
yeah.
whole about Don't Call Me Superwoman.
Oh, yes.
That's such a good one. That's a good one. So go listen to Yolanda's
Mm,
podcast, Don't Call Me Superwoman,
yes, I'll do it.
respectfully.
Yeah, please don't. I know people mean it in love, but it's yeah, there are many reasons why it doesn't work. So yeah.
Yeah, so you can go listen to that since we didn't have a chance to discuss it here. And maybe we'll discuss it in our Facebook group here at the end of the show. But we are already here at the end. So thank you for being with us today, Yolanda. You're so amazing. I love you so
Appreciate it.
much. And I
I love
appreciate all the
you.
work that you're doing in this world. And
Thank you.
so for those of you that are listening now and on the replay, just know that we go live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific here on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. So please follow and be with us next week. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, you want to connect, you can connect with me at lynsiemccowan.com or thrivingunapologetically@gmail.com. So I look forward to next week. And until then, many blessings and much love.
Yes, great piece.
All right, terrific show today. All clear. All right, I'm going to jump out. You both have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yay, it's by so fast.
We did it. I made
Yay.
it. You made it. We both made it. Whoa, excuse me.
And you made it the whole time without coughing.
I know. I was like, oh, and look, there's that little tickle.
Yes. So thank you so much. I'm just going to jump over just to check in the Facebook group to see if anybody had
Yeah.
posted any questions. And I have not quite figured out how to do this in a way where it's not such a lag time, but we'll see. All the tech. Let's see.
It's so fun, right?
Okay, no questions there right now. We have a few people watching right now, but if anyone has a question, you can for Yolanda, just drop it down there in the comment box. But is there anything that you feel like you really wanted to talk about and that we didn't get to that you would like to share with our special Facebook group?
Well, I don't know that there's anything that I felt extremely pressed to share. I mean, I think that, my steady mantra, there are many, but the message, I should say, is love, is that coming steadily back to love. And that's, zooming out from many of us wake up. There's this saying, right, about choosing violence that is moving through the world, through popular culture right now. Oh, you chose violence. So you woke up and chose violence. And it speaks to this way of being that is very reactive, that is sort of like, it's that fight mode where the button has gotten stuck. And I think that we aren't aware that if some of us wake up and we didn't choose it. And it's with us. It's with us because of what has happened in our life. It's with us because of the season that we're in presently. It's with us because of our genetics, because of our heredity. Like, you just wake up into this personality that is hostile just because, and like not purposefully. And I think that when I think about that, and I think about coming back to love, coming back to this zoomed out, sort of this way of being able to see more and be aware of more, so that you can let your central nervous system step down, support your central nervous system, care for that part of you that helps to inform so much of how we feel on a day-to-day, so much of how we think and respond and behave with the people around us. When we can bring care and awareness to that lovingly and gently, we're able to bring more love into our own reality, and thus into like the whole world, the earth space that we share. When more of us are able to bypass that like unconscious violence choice that many of us are sort of living in. We're just here like every moment. I'm just ready. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, that being the first and only mode that we find ourselves in is either that, or we're like super duper depressed or anxious. Like, being able to have more dynamics in our life, and that we feel more things besides this, and that these aren't governing our lives as much as they do, is a strong message. And I think that can happen when we come back to love, when we really understand.
And so let me ask you this. What does love feel like to you?
Yeah. So love has this component of feeling to me, but it isn't limited to feeling. So I think if I think about what love feels like, if I answer that question directly, I think about what I feel like when I am in contact with this part of me that feels like a well that is like unending. Like, there's like, the word is abundance that comes up for me, but not in a negative sort of cluttery kind of way. It's like an abundance, like the source of like grace, the source of wisdom, the source of intuitive connection, source of compassion, like space of power. Like, that to me is what love feels like. And in my body, I know it as a sort of a suppleness. That's the word that I keep coming to. It's not brittle. It's not like easily broken. It is flexible. It is powerful. It is strong. It is it can hold a whole lot of things. It can destroy when it needs to. I mean, it's it's this feeling of power, this feeling of presence and connectedness to like just bigness. And I just picture like this expanse that doesn't have an end to it. And so being able to like touch into that and be oriented from that space means then that everything in my life is touched in some way. And I have this wisdom that I'm mentioning, and this compassion and this clarity and this like spaciousness in my being that enables me to sort of shine that and move through in that way, however I'm moving. If it's a valley, if it's, you know, a very dry, low place, like I can have a suppleness in the midst of that. It is patience, it's room to grow. It is, you know, a decidedness. It is a conscious, fully seeing, sort of like, not like blindness, but like, no, I see the uncomely parts. I see the comely parts. I see the things that are a whole bunch of fun, and I see the things that are hard to be with, and I can do it. I can be with this, with groundedness and with confidence and curiosity, you know, knowing that my answer may not be the only right answer, like having some spaciousness while still being fully present to the truth that is here with me and for me too.
Thank you for such a beautiful like explanation of what love means to you, because it's so easy to like say, hey, you just need to bring more love in. What does that mean? What does it mean to bring what does joy mean? What does fun mean? And really taking, I love what you're doing is you're leading by example again. Like, what does it mean? Like, take the time to really feel into your body what this means to you, so that in those moments you can connect to it more.
Yes.
And so it's just a beautiful explanation. And when you're saying that, it's like, God, it's the source of everything.
That's
like,
what I think. That's what I believe. That's what I feel like I know. I know that that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, some of the most influential teachers, I think about people like Bell Hooks, who wrote All About Love. I think about, you know, these sacred texts. I can name all, you know, all the sacred texts that talk about aspects of love. And for me, it's like, you can even go into war. You can go into battle and have the intent to like be violent in a war. And when you have an awareness of love, like when you are zoomed out, like, you know that there is a righteous kind of indignation that can take place, so that even if the matter at hand is to take a life, you know, it can go that far. Even if you have to make these really hard decisions, how can you do that in love? That is having this kind of zoomed outness about yourself, this ability to like see more, see what's here, to have dignity and to bestow dignity upon others, even if this is where we are. We're on this battlefield. And this is what we both signed up for, if that's the case. And being able to be in that kind of space. What'd you say?
It reminds me of the Bhagavad Gita, the yogic text about when you're sitting there on the battlefield and you're going up against people that you know, and family members, and you have to make a choice. Like, okay, you know, you might not want to go to battle with them, but there is this, if you're moving from love, then this is your spiritual path. This is something you must do. And there is, you know, a righteous love backing that.
Yeah. I mean, it empowers you to bestow or to remember, to honor dignity in other people and in their existence and in their path, while also having the same presence to your own. Yeah.
Yolanda, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love talking to you.
It.
We must do this more frequently. And I was not joking about the retreat.
Yeah, me either. I'm serious.
Powerful women coming together.
Yes, absolutely. Let me know.
Powerful women in circle. Yeah.
Let me know.
Okay. We'll make it happen. And just please be well and take tender care of yourself, which I know that you do and you have been doing. But yeah. And I'll just be sending you so much love. And if you ever need anything, I am not too far away.
I appreciate you, Lynsie. Thank you. I look forward to being in more connection as time goes.
Okay. I look forward to having you back on the show. Thank you so much again.
All right.
Love to you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.